Great. Fine, then I'll talk to you Wednesday. Hello, I'm George Walther, and I've had it with those time-wasting, frustrating, sometimes infuriating telephone situations that seem to happen every day. And I'll bet you're fed up too. During the next few minutes, we're going to put some simple, proven, effective techniques to work. They're going to help you unleash the power that's dormant in your phone every time you use it.
Hello, I'm returning Mr. Sanders' call. Is he in?
No, I'm sorry, he just left for lunch. Can he return your call?
Have those supplies I ordered come in yet? I've been waiting for them over a month and my stock's running low.
This is the overseas operator. How may I help you? You can dial that direct. 10288017.
Listen, Helen, I'm in my car and I don't have my notes with me. Can you check the contracts that are on my desk, please?
Hello, this is Mr. Sanders. I'm returning Mrs. Spencer's call.
I'm sorry, Mr. Sanders. You just missed her. She's gone for the day.
Florence, can you give me that delicious apple pie recipe you made the last time Howard and I were over for dinner? He's been raving about it ever since.
I've asked a lot of people how they feel about their telephones. And do you know how most answer? I hate it. Some people consider telephone calls to be annoying interruptions. Others point to their phones as major time thieves. Still others have actually got phonophobia. They hate having to make a call, and they really get rattled when the calls start pouring in. But wait a minute. This phone and the system of cables, satellites, and switching equipment it's connected to form the most powerful, effective communication system this world has ever seen. So why all the irritation? How come we're always getting put on perpetual hold, transferred from one uninformed person to a rude one, and then given information that's either incomprehensible or just plain wrong? The reasons are pretty simple. The system itself is fine. The problems come from us, the users. For the most part, we use the telephone almost unconsciously. Old habits lead us to frustrating, ineffective exchanges that can leave us, well, hating our phones. So let's see how we can make the telephone an effective communication tool rather than a frustrating, irritating, and annoying time waster.
Mr. Jacobs' office?
Hello, this is John Anderson. Is Mr. Jacobs in, please?
No, I'm sorry, he's in a meeting. I'll be glad to have him call you back when he's free.
That would be fine.
Hello, this is Hank Jacobs returning Mr. Anderson's call.
Mr. Jacobs, Mr. Anderson is busy right now. Can he return your call after lunch?
Sure.
This is John Anderson returning Mr. Jacobs' return of my call.
Mr. Jacobs just left for a late lunch appointment. Can I have him call you back either tomorrow morning?
Been playing phone tag lately? You call someone, somebody takes a message, you get a call back just after leaving for lunch, you call again in the afternoon, but the guy you're trying to reach is in a meeting, and on and on and on. You know the game. We all get caught in it more than we'd like. The best way to stop playing phone tag is to simply not let the game get started in the first place. When you call someone and hear a secretary or receptionist say,
Mr. Anderson's not at his desk. Would you like to leave a message?
don't just leave your name and number. Instead, take one extra step right then and there to reach your contact. Have the person paged or ask if there's another extension where you can reach him. And ask the operator for the best person to talk with for your situation. That person may be available right away. If you must talk with one specific person and he just isn't there, your best bet is to schedule a definite time to call again. Simply leaving a message and asking for a return call just leaves you open to playing phone tag. If you want results, you, the caller, have to take control.
Janet, does Mr. Jacobs' schedule look better at 11:30, or is right after lunch a better time?
No, Mr. Anderson. There's a staff meeting starting at 1 o'clock, but he should be free just before lunch.
Great. I'll call back right at 11:30. Could you please make a note of that on Mr. Jacobs' schedule? And also, if you could tell him that I want to review Section 7 of our contract, that way we'll both be looking at the same thing and we can clear this up in a few minutes. I'll call you back at 11:30. Thank you for your help.
All right, Mr. Anderson, I'll talk to you then.
One of the major keys to getting more accomplished more quickly is to schedule call appointments. Find out when your contact is most likely to be available. If you're talking to a secretary or assistant, ask to schedule a telephone appointment. An important phone conversation should get just as much attention as an important face-to-face meeting. Your aim isn't to cut your phone bill by making the other guy call you back. And you're not just out to put the ball in his court. You want to get connected. Control really is a crucial key to using the phone well. You're better off as the caller instead of the callee. Negotiators always prefer to conduct discussions in their own offices, just as athletic teams have an advantage playing on the home field or court. When someone calls you, you have to quickly shift gears from whatever you were doing to the business now at hand. You can't perform at peak levels unless you are prepared, both physically and psychologically, to achieve your goals. But when you are the caller, you gain the advantage of power through preparation. You can take the time to write out exactly what you want to accomplish before the call. You're able to consider what questions to ask, what points to raise, exactly what you need to cover. And you're also able to prepare psychologically. Sure, there are lots of times when you make a phone call just to chat or stay in touch with a friend. But most business conversations have a specific objective. If you were traveling to a meeting, you'd certainly give careful thought to your goals. Problem is, when people use the telephone, they don't invest the time to identify and focus on their objectives. Successful people in all walks of life agree that achieving goals does require planning and hard work. And nothing is more important than an attitude of success. If the other guy calls you, you're off guard. Your emotional energy is concentrated elsewhere. When you place the call, you can psychologically gear yourself up to achieve positive results. If you work with a secretary or assistant, you've got a powerful team combination. Use it. Consider giving your secretary control of a 1-hour block of time each morning and each afternoon reserved for your callbacks. When a client or colleague calls for you, have your secretary find out exactly what the call concerns. In many cases, she can either answer the question or direct the caller to someone who will. But if you and the caller do need to talk, she'll schedule the callback right then and there. She simply refers to your telephone appointment sheet and finds a time that's convenient for you and the caller. She makes sure that the caller understands that this is a commitment, not a vague promise to get in touch later.
Mr. Jacobs, that looks fine. Mr. Anderson will call you at 11:30. What's your secretary's name? Okay. Please ask Janet to watch for his call. John is very punctual, and he will consider this call back as a definite appointment.
Sound kind of wordy and unrealistic? Maybe you even think it would be too much trouble to schedule such an appointment. That whole process took about 15 seconds. But if you don't make an appointment, you're almost sure to get caught in the time-wasting game of perpetual phone tag. National research shows that at least 3 out of 4 attempted contacts are unsuccessful. If you keep careful track of your own phone activity, you'll probably find that you sacrifice at least 20 minutes a day to phone tag. That's almost 2 hours a week. In the last year, phone tag probably robbed you of more than 2 full work weeks. Isn't it worth investing a few seconds to make sure you don't get caught wasting so much time? Not to mention the frustration. If you're going to leave a message, make it good enough to help you achieve your objectives.
Yes, thanks. I would like to leave a message. What's your name? Hi, Sandy. Let me take a minute to explain just what I want to cover with Elaine. That way she won't have to waste her time playing phone tag. Okay, first, we need to verify legal approval of the new disclaimer. Now, if you'll have that ready for her, Elaine should be able to finalize this version by Wednesday or Thursday. Now, if there's any problem in the meantime, just call me. Now, otherwise, I'll call you on Friday to verify that everything's okay. Now, is 9:30 a good time to call? Great. Then I'll talk to you this Friday at 9:30 unless I hear from you sooner.
Once again, that took a bit longer than most messages. The whole call lasted a little over half a minute. But that's not time that's spent. It's invested. Think of the trade-off. If he were lucky and did get a return call after leaving a shorter message, He'd have had to go through the whole message again anyway. Then, Elaine would either have to put him on hold or call back after she retrieved the document. Then, of course, she'd have to go talk to the lawyer, and odds are they'd have begun playing phone tag. The golden rule applies to phone tag just as it does to other areas of telephone techniques. You appreciate it when someone you call takes an extra step to save time and end phone tag. So, treat others as you'd like them to treat you. Phone tag wastes a large part of your day, and the calls themselves often take way too long. Time waste is the #1 problem in using the phone well. One National Personnel Service recently determined that fully 21% of all phone time is wasted. Time is money, and that adds up to lots of dollars. You can get a lot more accomplished, much faster, by using some simple telephone techniques. Decide how calls are going to be handled in your office. Whether you have a secretary, are a secretary, or simply have co-workers who handle some of your calls, you can create a time-saving team with just a little thought and planning. We use the word screening when we talk about a secretary intercepting a call. I'm afraid screening has gotten a bum rap.
Mr. Johnson's office?
Is he in, please?
Who's calling, please?
Paul Booth.
Just a minute, I think he's in a meeting. Henry, there's a Paul Booth calling for you. What do you want me to tell him?
Not him. Just tell him I'm in a meeting or something.
I'm sorry, Mr. Booth, he's in a meeting and can't come to the phone. Why don't you try him later this afternoon?
That's not what call screening is supposed to mean. When you ask the caller why he's calling, it's because you want to find out who can best help. No point wasting his time if there's somebody else who's in a better position to serve him. And if he has called the right person, he'll get the best, most efficient help if that person is well prepared. Switch your thinking about call screening. Stop thinking of it as a way to barricade the boss, and instead, think of it as a way to help both the caller and the callee. Of course, there are some people who you always want to talk with, regardless of what's going on. Secretaries and supervisors should agree on a blessed and a pest list. The blessed list is those people who you always want to be interrupted for. The boss, your best customer, maybe a management recruiter. Then there is your pest list. I'm sure there are some people who never have anything important to talk about when they call you, never get to the point, even if they have one, and always leave you wishing that you hadn't made time for the conversation. Let your secretary know that you just don't want to talk to those people. Don't ask her to lie. She shouldn't ever say, "He's in a meeting." Simply have her say something truthful, like, "George is working on a writing project and has asked me not to interrupt him. I will let him know that you called." Most callers are on neither list, and these are the people for whom call screening is designed. A secretary's job is to find out who's calling and exactly what the call concerns. If the caller can show her that the conversation is important, she schedules a definite callback appointment. If the caller can't show her the call is important, don't take it. It would be wasteful for both of you to have a conversation if the subject is of no interest to you.
Good morning, Mr. Johnson's office. This is Diane speaking. How may I help you?
Is he in, please?
Yes, but he's working on a budgeting project right now, and he's asked me not to disturb him. Who's calling, please?
Paul Booth.
Oh, Mr. Booth, I arranged Mr. Johnson's callback schedule. If you'll just tell me about your call, I can either arrange a callback or help you another way.
Yes, what I'd like to do.
You can start saving time right now by making sure you get a complete message. Do you use telephone message pads like this one? Are you ever able to communicate complete information on one of these? You're lucky if you can squeeze the name and number on those little lines. Now, if you use this version, you can get more complete messages. Just because your stationery supplier sells some pre-printed forms doesn't mean you have to use them. Design your own with the information you need. Here's what I use. It has all the vital basics: name, company, phone number, reason for the call, but it also has several extra elements that give me an edge when calling back, like the phonetic spelling for callers with unusual names. And instead of a check mark in a tiny box that says, "Will call again" or "Please call back," this message slip makes it very easy to schedule a callback appointment. When this slip is filled out, I know exactly when the conversation is scheduled. There are several other important tidbits on this form. You've noticed that sometimes a person's words just don't tell the whole story. There's often an emotional agenda that comes through loud and clear in a person's voice. Whoever takes the message for you will pick up the between-the-lines message. So why not ask what it is? I've found that my secretary's impressions are very reliable. If the caller seems rushed and serious, sincere and businesslike, or laid back and relaxed, I want to know it. And if my secretary makes any promises, I want to know that too. If you've made a promise and then don't follow through, the negative impression that results is indelible. Finally, I use a simple priority system. Every message has a clear ranking. An A call is one that I must return right away. A B is much less pressing, but still important. And a C call requires no action from me. One of the basic principles of time management is to do things in order of priority. When you're returning calls, handle the A's right on schedule. Don't even glance at the C's until your priority calls are complete. With a smooth-running call handling system, a secretary or co-worker screens your inbound call, gathers all the information you need to handle it, schedules a specific call back, and then provides you with a complete packet of preparation materials. The calls are arranged in priority order with all necessary forms or reference materials attached. Now, you're ready to go. Where you place your phone can have a big impact on how you use it. If your desk looks like this, it's time for a change. I recommend setting up a phone station. Be sure it's in an uncluttered area, away from your main work surface, so that when you face the phone, you face away from other people, away from the door or hallway, so passers-by don't divert your gaze. Have a fresh pad and a pen nearby, and maybe a small rack to hold your message slips and prioritized callbacks. Since time waste is the major concern for most of us phoners, be sure to place a small clock nearby. Be aware of the minutes you're investing during each call. And this may surprise you. A small mirror is a vital phone accessory. It's a good idea to glance in the mirror before starting a call. Your voice does project your disposition, so make sure you've got a friendly smile on your face before talking. Now that your phone station is prepared, it's time to prepare yourself before you dial. It's a rare business call that doesn't have at least one specific objective. Most have several. Trouble is, most people give little thought to what they want to accomplish on the telephone. If you were going to a meeting, you'd first prepare some notes. Do the same thing for your important phone calls. Before you dial, identify exactly what you want to accomplish and write out your specific objectives. A written call planner, like this one, should be your visual focus. Jot down a couple of questions that will help you gather information while showing your interest in the other person's point of view. Your call planner and message slips are vital records of what happened. Part of having a call handling system is keeping track of your conversations. One reason people sometimes prefer to write a letter or memo is that they want a history of what occurred. If you have a record of what you covered during important conversations, it can be very valuable later on. Having a roadmap showing where you want to go helps you control the call. Of course, you've already put yourself in a stronger position by controlling the turf, placing the call back rather than reacting to a call. There's a final vital component to saving time on the phone: good listening skills. It's amazing what poor listeners most of us are. Most time loss on the phone results from poor preparation coupled with poor listening. Dr. Lyman K. Stile, Communications Authority and Executive Director of the International Listening Association, has thoroughly researched our listening habits. He's found that we communicate during about 80% of our waking hours. What we do least is write. That's only about 9% of our communications activity. 16% of the time is used to read. And we speak during 30% of our time. But listening accounts for 45% of our communications activity. All through school, we get training in reading and writing, maybe even a course or two on speaking, but we never seem to get solid training in listening. As a result, we're a bunch of horrible listeners. Lots of research confirms that in face-to-face situations, we listen at an effective rate of only about 25%. On the phone, we're probably even worse. Poor listening mistakes are costly, but they can be reduced dramatically with 6 simple techniques. 1. Always prepare to listen. Consciously decide that you're going to give your full attention to the call. 2. Turn away from your other work and keep an open mind, concentrating on what the other guy is saying. 3. Don't interrupt. Understand. Don't second guess. 4. Adopt the same physical posture you'd use face-to-face. Show your attention and interest by sitting up straight. Look alert. 5. Take notes during every call. The more senses that are involved, the better your retention. And 6. Invest the time to repeat and verify key facts. It's surprising how often we're certain that we heard what we heard, but it's just not what the other guy is equally as certain he said. You can dramatically cut your wasted phone time and be much more effective achieving results if you'll simply follow these steps.
Hi. I was wondering if it really isn't too much of a bother, just in case, Mr. Baskin has a few minutes. Do you think I could talk to him about... Well, I kind of have this question, and I guess he's the one that can answer it.
Your voice is like a window that lets the other person see you. We need to be very attentive to those first impressions. They count for a lot, and you never get a second chance to correct a bad one. But when does that first impression really take place? No, not in person, but in a phone call. The job applicant creates an impression on his potential employer when she first calls for the interview. A salesman makes his when he calls to schedule the sales appointment. We all form judgments about others on the phone, and we do it quickly. Next time a stranger calls, pause after 15 seconds and ask yourself what impressions you've picked up. Of course, just as we're busy picking up impressions about others, they're doing exactly the same thing about us. The way you speak says a lot about you. You can use your voice to convey just the impression you want. I call this power talking. I'm not just talking about the words you use, although what you say definitely plays a role in projecting your phone image. How you say your words and what you're saying with your body also make a dramatic impact. Body language, plus your voice and the actual words you choose to say together form your impression. In face-to-face conversations, research has shown that the words themselves convey only 7% of your feelings to others. The way you say them, your voice tone, rhythm, volume, and so on, convey 38%. And your body language carries a whopping 55% of the weight.
Harold, I want you to come into my office. Let's talk turkey.
Let's try it another way, with precisely the same words.
Harold, I want you to come into my office. Let's talk turkey.
Notice how the voice and body language carried more of the message than the words. Power talkers use 5 techniques to make the best possible impression. As you talk with others who impress you positively, notice how many of these principles you hear in action. The whole aim of communication is to understand each other. Anything that gets in the way of understanding hinders your ability to create good impressions while communicating. So, step 1 for any power talker is to develop rapport. Get on the other person's wavelength. Adjust the way you speak to match the other person's pattern. There's no fixed ideal way to speak. If the caller speaks at my rate at about 150 words a minute, and you rattle out some ideas at 225, he's going to miss many of them because he's busy feeling uncomfortable about your pace. Maybe he'll label you a fast talker and think you're trying to rush something past him. Or he may even think you're trying to talk over his head. The point is, he's going to think something unless your speaking rate is just about like his. If you sound similar, you let the other person focus on the content of what you're saying. You may also need to adjust your volume. If the other person seems most comfortable speaking softly, tone your voice down some. I'm not saying you should eliminate your own personality, just make it easier for the other person to understand you. Notice, too, the word patterns others use. Some are very interested in talking about their emotions and other people. Some just want to get to the bottom line of a business decision. Others want to know every single fact and detail. People think and speak in many different patterns. For centuries, the best salesmen have been experts at making people feel comfortable by reflecting their own communication patterns. Other rapport-building tips are plain common sense. Use the other person's name 2 or 3 times during a phone conversation. Oh, I know, this can be way overdone. But we do all respond positively when we hear others say our names. The best way to build rapport is to ask questions. This gives you a chance to listen and get a profile of the other person's communication patterns. And you can find common ground by showing that you're interested in finding out about the other person, his views or his experiences. The next technique is to let your body talk. Your whole body influences how you sound. If you want to convey enthusiasm, move around. Fit your phone with a long cord like this one, so you can move about freely as you talk. In the process, you'll keep your blood circulating more quickly, and that helps you to sound alert and lively. We've already talked about the importance of good listening skills. Your body plays a big role here, too. If you're slouched down, you sound uninterested.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what happened. Tell me all about it.
But if you simply correct your posture and sit up, you'll be amazed at how it will change the sound of your voice and help convey sincere interest.
Yes, I'd like to hear what happened. Tell me all about it.
Your word choice also makes a strong impression.
Well, gee, I don't think I can possibly get that to you before Friday. Possibly I might be able to try. Yes, I will have that to you no later than Friday, and I will arrange to have it ready for you by noon.
The same basic facts, which sounded more professional? The next power talking technique is to use positive, active language. When you use positive, active words, people not only get a better impression of you, they actually understand what you're saying more easily. In fact, researchers have found that the same statement, stated positively, is understood 1/3 more quickly than one that's phrased negatively. There's a whole list of wishy-washy negative words that we should purge from our vocabularies.
Yeah, I'll try.
What a cop-out. Say what you definitely will do. That sneaky word try just gives you an out if you don't follow through as you intended. Know what you're going to do and commit to doing it.
I'll have to check with accounting on this.
So fine, check with accounting. But don't make it sound like such a burden. I'll be glad to check with accounting. Makes all the difference.
I'll be honest with you.
Hold it. Does that mean you've been lying to me up until now?
Can I ask you a question?
You already have. If the question is a valid one and the time is right, ask away. You don't need to get down on your knees and ask permission to ask a question.
I'm only the assistant.
Where's your pride? Nobody should ever belittle him or herself. Whatever your job may be, it's a vital one, and you've got every right to be proud of your work. Never put yourself down.
I'll have to ask somebody about that.
Does that mean you're a nobody? Wouldn't you make a better impression if you said, I'll be glad to confirm that information with accounting and get back to you within the hour? Pay attention to power talkers around you. Notice what they say that creates their gets things done image. When you've discovered a wishy-washy phrase you'd like to dump from your own vocabulary, try to, do eliminate it with the aid of this behavior modification device. Write the word or phrase you're going to purge right on the rubber band and wear it on your wrist. When you hear yourself using the offending word, give the band a snap. You'll be giving yourself a sharp reminder. Technique number 4. Be concise. Power talkers get right to the point. Sure, there's room for friendly banter, but if you want to communicate business information, do it concisely.
Well, I could try and get in touch with you later on, say at the end of the week, like maybe Thursday afternoon or Friday, if that's okay.
Instead, how about...
I'll reach you on Friday. Is 10:30 convenient, or shall I call you at 2?
Remember, the one piece of advice most business people would like to give on the phone is get to the point. And now for our fifth and final guideline. Always tell the truth. Once you sacrifice integrity, you never get it back. Your reputation is going to be with you forever. I recently talked with Ken Cragen, known the world over as the man behind USA for Africa and Hands Across America, not to mention his management of such superstars as Lionel Richie and Kenny Rogers. When I asked Ken about the single most important factor in his very successful business career, he said without hesitation, "I always tell the truth." It's tempting to fudge sometimes. You think nobody will notice. But communications specialists have discovered that your voice communicates honesty more reliably than your words or even your body language. A pathological liar may be able to look you in the eye and say, "I mailed that check last week. You should have gotten it by now." Subtle voice fluctuations, researchers call it cue leakage, are what give away liars. Just assume that anyone you're talking to will know if you're really telling the truth or not. It's not very difficult to be a power talker. The skills that you develop for projecting the best possible phone impressions will carry through to your in-person impressions too. It's easy to get caught up in power-talking principles and time-saving techniques, but completely lose sight of why we're all in business in the first place. You've probably got at least one book with excellence in the title somewhere in your office or home. One of the dominant themes of all the excellence books is that in order to really achieve excellence, you must stay close to your customers, find out what they think of your service, what product improvement ideas they have, and exactly how they feel about your company. There's a very simple customer feedback program that I call SOAR, S-O-A-R. This program will help you soar above all competitors in your field. The S stands for solicit. Ensure that everyone in your organization who has daily contact with customers solicits feedback at every opportunity. Take the time to ask just one question. It may be something simple like,
I notice you've been using our product for more than a year now. If you could make one change to improve it, what would it be?
or,
We're delighted to have you as a customer, and we're always looking for ways to serve you better. If there's one thing you'd like to see us do a little better, what would it be?
You'll be amazed at the ideas your customers offer if you just ask for them. The O in SOAR stands for open. Open the communication channel. Sometimes you've got to consciously coax those comments. With a sincere tone of voice, let your customers know that you really do want to hear their ideas.
Mr. Adams, it sounds like there's just a bit of hesitation in your voice. I know sometimes it's hard to tell people when they've let you down, but I really would like to know if there's an area where we could improve. My aim is to find out about problems so I can fix them.
The most valuable input you can get is that which concerns your shortcomings. The A of SOAR stands for appreciate. Express appreciation for what you've just heard, especially if it's bad news. Even if the caller has offered several complaints, respond sincerely and say,
Mr. Jackson, I'm very sorry that we've disappointed you, and I'm very glad that you've taken the time to tell me about it. Without comments like yours, I wouldn't be able to fix the problems. Thank you for telling me the truth.
And finally, the R stands for reward. Any behavior that you want to see repeated has to be rewarded. If you want your customers to keep giving you feedback, reward that behavior immediately. Send a sincere thank you letter expressing appreciation for taking the time to be honest. And, even more important, follow up with a phone call a week or 10 days later and let them know what you've done as a result of their comments. Since any organization's public image is largely the result of its telephone techniques, doesn't it make sense to regard every call as an opportunity to create positive PR? Think of PR as phone relations. A truly professional communicator takes a moment to prepare himself for peak performance before speaking with the customer. Check your body language. When you talk with your customer, you'll be hearing all three communication channels: the actual words you say, the voice you say them with, and the body, which acts as your expressive instrument. Shift your concentration from whatever has been absorbing your attention to only one focus: the caller. Put your customer in the spotlight. Prepare any materials you'll need while handling this call. Now you're ready for that all-important first moment of contact. The first words you say when you answer determine how the call will proceed. If the call begins poorly, you may turn it around, but only with a great deal of effort. The best way to get the call heading the right way is to start by giving it a good solid push in a positive direction. Nothing counts so much as the first few words you say. There are three important ingredients to an ideal telephone opening. Begin with a friendly greeting, with a good morning or good afternoon. Say it with a smile on your face and mean it. Then identify yourself and your organization or department. After breaking the ice with your friendly greeting, help the caller feel reassured that he's reached the right person. Be sure to say your name and your company name slowly and clearly. After a friendly, clear introduction, there's one final ingredient to that first opening statement: the invitation to move forward. "How may I help you today?" really gets you headed in the right direction. Notice that I'm not suggesting you ask, "May I help you?" or "Can I help you?" since those aren't really the questions you want to begin with. After all, you're not seeking the customer's permission to help.
Good morning. This is Lisa at Acme Insurance. How may I help you today?
The best way to start reacting professionally is to think of that first telephone ring as a signal reminding you to prepare, check your body language, focus your concentration, assemble your materials, and then smile and greet your caller. There are two major areas of vulnerability in phone relations: transferring calls and putting people on hold. Beware. This is when tempers can flare. There are several ways to transfer calls. The best way is to use the conference feature on your telephone. Most modern systems allow you to transfer a call so that you, the caller, and the person to whom you're transferring can all be in the same conversation together. Though a conference transfer is best, there are a couple of other ways to transfer a call that also work well. One is called the announced pickup. Ask your caller to hold and then announce the call to your coworker using the customer's name. Another effective transfer might be called the preview technique. In other words, you preview for your caller just what's going to happen next. If you can't announce the caller to your coworker, at least tell the caller what will happen next. When you can't use these methods to transfer a call, at least be extra careful to handle the transfer smoothly. If you're clear, friendly, competent, you'll be putting yourself way out in front of most call handlers. When somebody announces that they're going to transfer your call, don't you notice that you immediately get somewhat tense, half expecting to be cut off or lost in Never Never Land? Your callers feel just the same way. Provide that reassurance to let them know that you'll handle the call smoothly, and then take any extra steps you can to pave the way for rapport between the caller and your coworker. Another danger area comes when you place any caller on hold. It feels like your fate is out of your hands. Will anybody come back? Will you be left dangling interminably? Perpetual hold is one of the most common irritations. There are three simple steps for placing a caller on hold. The first is to give him a choice.
Mr. Jackson, I don't have that information in front of me, but it'll take me just 3 or 4 minutes to track it down. Would you like to hold briefly, or may I take your number and call you back in a few minutes?
Second, reassure your caller by periodically coming back on the line. If the holding period is going to be 20 seconds or longer, you can bet that he's going to start feeling uncomfortable. You can go a long way toward limiting his discomfort by simply checking back.
Mr. Jackson, I haven't forgotten you. I'm getting that information now. And don't worry, I'll be right back.
And finally, when you first return to the call after a period of silence, your very first words should be, "Thank you."
Thank you for holding, Mr. Jackson. I have that information for you, and I really appreciate your patience while you were waiting.
As you can see, it doesn't take any superhuman feat of expertise to master the basics of great phone relations. Everybody who answers a call, transfers a caller, puts one on hold, or takes a message is at that moment capable of creating positive PR. Make phone relations a top priority.
I'm sorry you're unhappy. Let me transfer you to the right person. If you just listen for a moment. I just about had it with this lousy job.
The emotional call can be either an extremely positive or a very negative experience. Most often it's the latter. But it really doesn't have to be that way. Handled smoothly, the trouble call can result in a stronger relationship with your customer, and, just as important, you can be left with a sense of confidence, competence, and power. When you can handle the emotionally charged caller, you can handle anyone. You know if the call's going to be a rough one within the first few seconds. The caller's tone of voice, accusatory language, and loud volume all say, "I'm going to let you have it." How you react at this point determines the outcome of the call. So, prepare yourself. Check your body posture. Uncrossed limbs, erect posture, and an overall alertness show that you're ready to listen. The best impression you can convey to an unhappy caller is that you're interested, concerned, and ready to help. Be sure your body shows that attitude, and it'll carry through to your voice. Just as important, the physical act of adjusting your body gives your inner self a signal that you intend to manage your behavior instead of just letting it happen. Next, get ready to take notes. Emotions don't solve problems. Facts do. And you're about to get a barrage of facts. Capturing them on paper keeps your focus on the content rather than the emotion of the message, gives you a written record of your conversation for future reference, and lets you show the caller that you were listening.
I'm glad you've brought these facts to my attention. They're really important, and I've jotted down some notes just to be sure I've heard you correctly.
It's just as if you were saying, "I'm not brushing you aside or taking you lightly. I care about what you are saying, and I've taken the trouble to be conscientious about hearing you." Problems can be solved only after gathering information, and you're about to get a barrage of information. Much of it is emotional, some of it is objective fact. The critical task in defusing irate callers is to listen. Complainers sometimes have a lot in common with Mount St. Helens. It's as if they have bulging lava domes of anger all built up inside them, and they just have to vent some of the hot gases before they explode. Let the whole eruption happen. Problems can be solved only after gathering information. Listen rationally and hear what the caller has to say without interrupting. As you're listening, provide verbal feedback to let the other person know that you're there.
I see. And then what happened? Uh-huh. Go on. I follow you. No, I understand.
As long as you remember that the information you're receiving, though negative in tone, is valuable, you can stay positioned in a receptive stance, ready to hear more. Okay, you've prepared yourself and listened rationally. Now you need to establish rapport with the caller. Complaint calls start off with emotional expressions. Solutions are rational. How do you get from one to the other? First, be sure that the emotions have run their course. Then, build a bridge to rational discussion. That bridge-building process is your conscious effort to establish rapport. Begin by using the other person's name.
Mr. Thompson, thank you very much for letting me know about this situation.
There's no sweeter sound to any person in any language than the sound of his own name. Then, state your purpose, which is to solve the problem.
Now, my highest priority is solving this problem with you. I'm personally going to work with you until we get this thing straightened out. There's nothing is more important to us than your satisfaction.
In effect, you say, you and I are on the same team. Let's pool our energies and work together. Be sure to mention that you have jotted notes. Your aim is to show the caller that you have a sincere interest in solving the problem and that you've been listening.
Now, I'm concerned about this situation, and your experience is important to me. I've jotted down some notes while we were talking just to make sure that I understand exactly what happened.
The caller starts getting the idea that you actually mean what you've said. If you took the trouble to write notes, maybe you actually do intend to understand his side of the story and take some action. Now, ask questions to gain further clarification.
Now, I want to be sure my notes are accurate so that I really understand what happened. Then we'll figure out how I can help you, okay? Now, you mentioned that the shipment arrived on the 17th. Did you first notice the damage right away, or was it after you opened the carton?
You prepared, listened, developed rapport. Now we need to create the solution. Here's where we lose track of our roles. We get the feeling that we're on the line, all alone, thrown into the position of single-handedly coming up with a quick solution to soothe the complaining customer. But wait, are you alone? You've been telling and showing the caller that you're on the same side. You want the same thing, a solution that produces satisfaction. Ask what the caller would like.
Mr. Thompson, I know that you've already given this situation a lot of thought. Would you please tell me what would make things better for you? Now, I'm sure you have some good ideas. What would you like me to do?
Since your ultimate aim is to win back the dissatisfied customer, it makes every bit of sense to ask him what he wants. Be sure you speak in positives. When emotions are running high, as in complaint situations, word choice is critical. There's an emotional world of difference between
I can't do anything but send out a serviceman, and I can't do that before next Wednesday.
and
I'll be glad to send out our service specialist. I'll make sure that repair is scheduled for Wednesday, if that's a convenient time for you.
you and your partner work together to create the solution. Now, sell the solution. Regaining the faith and continued business of a disgruntled customer is a selling process. The product is the solution or action you've promised. But the inherent value or benefit of that solution may not be clear to the complainer. Make it very plain.
Mr. Thompson, having that unit repaired on Wednesday means that you're still going to be able to finish your production run by the end of the week. Of course, your original guarantee will still be in effect, and our service specialist will also be able to inspect the mounting on the unit to make sure there are no vibrations that may cause problems in the future.
So now you've prepared, listened, built rapport, and created the solution. But don't forget the confirmation. This is a high-risk, high-reward situation, so it's well worth confirming your mutual understanding. Carefully review the steps you've promised to take, as well as any action the complainer will be taking. Reinforce the same team orientation by using terms that indicate mutuality. Rather than saying, I want to be sure that you understand what I'm going to do, say, let's be sure we're both clear about what we'll do next. Of course, the more explicit, the better. Confirm exactly what you'll do, what you're expecting of the customer, and when it will happen. Right after you hang up, take the next step and follow through. There are lots of times when you can fall slightly short and be forgiven. Solving a customer's problem isn't one of them. It's absolutely imperative that you take precisely the action you've promised. As soon as you hang up, record in your calendar each step and exactly when you're going to take it. In most instances, you should send a written confirmation of the solution to which you've agreed. Always thank the customer for taking the time to help you improve your service or product. The written follow-up gives you another opportunity to create a positive impression and help mend that damaged relationship. How you respond when an angry, complaining caller reaches you is the acid test of your phone power. Sure, there are some totally irrational people out there, but most complainers do have valid points and can offer valuable suggestions if you follow the complaint handling agenda. Remember, no call offers as much profit potential as a complaint call. We've talked about time-saving techniques and the principles of power talking. We've reviewed the basics of outstanding phone relations and seen how to convert complaint calls into profit opportunities. Phone power is mostly common sense. Every time your phone rings, each time you call someone else, focus all of your common sense on unleashing the tremendous power of your telephone. This is George Walther. More phone power to you.